All right, welcome to today's Let's Talk Wellness. We are here with Nick to talk about Fad Diets. So have you read or heard 101 different ways to structure your diet but never give any guidance? Here we are with Nick today, our Livongo engagement specialist and nutritionist, to break down the common diet trends and general rules of thumb to follow. I will turn it over to Nick. Feel free to keep open your chat if you do want to make this interactive as possible. We'll be answering questions and we will go from there. All right, turn to you, Nick.
All right, great. Thank you, Jen. So as Jen had alluded to when we first started this, asking everybody about if they've ever dieted before, I'm going to be diving a little bit into some of the different dieting trends that we've been seeing lately in the past few years. It's really exploded. And I say this in almost every presentation I'm in, that there's so much information that it's really hard to disseminate what it is that you should do if you're doing things right, if you're doing things wrong. You know, not everybody's an expert when it comes to food. It can be a very, very complicated science. So today was just about trying to really break it down, make it as simple as possible. I'll talk a little bit about these different diets just because I always get, that's always the number one question is, how should I eat? I get that more times than not. And, you know, again, with all these diets out there, it might be simple for you to think, or simple for anybody to think, that this is what you should be doing. And for the most part, a lot of people don't have guidance from their doctors. They don't have, you know, they're not taking the proper steps to be prepared. So I'm going to talk a little bit about them. And then I'm going to end out just on a few simple things that I do in my everyday life that make it very, very easy to eat clean, to stay as on top of my diet as possible. Talk a little bit about that. And throughout the course of this, if anybody has any questions, the chat pops up as I present. I'll be able to read it, so I'll be able to address it right then and there. All right, Jen, we can go to the next slide. Thanks. So as you can see here, you know, nearly 72% of Americans are overweight or obese. And I think in large part, it's because eating has become so incredibly complicated. Last year alone, these were the top ranking diets, and that's, you know, the low carb and the keto. You might also know this as Atkins. Atkins doesn't have such a high prioritization on fats, but it is known as a low carb diet that people follow. The high protein, we've been hearing that for years now. Intermittent fasting is definitely gaining a lot of attention right now and a lot of traction. And, you know, your vegetarianism, the Mediterranean diet, which has always been a really solid foundation, I think, for a diet. The Mediterranean diet, it's very, very balanced. And there's the flexitarian diet, which is, they say flexitarian vegan here, but it can go to flexitarian for your carnivore diet. You can be a flexitarian for vegetarian diet. And I'll talk a little bit about that as we go forward. So we're going to jump right in. Jen, you can go to the next slide, and I'm going to start talking about the different diets that are out there. So the first one, this is the big one. It's all of these plant-based proteins, all of these meat substitutes and meat alternatives. And I think it's very easy for everybody to jump on that because it is a trend. You know, people get a little bit of recognition when they eat vegetarian. And I think a lot of people jump on it because of that. And it's not necessarily bad. There's just things that everybody needs to know. And the number one question is always, you know, are they healthy? And what's it made out of? What exactly am I eating? So for the healthier portion of it, it can be. Anything can be healthy if you eat it in moderation and it fits into your diet. But there are some little things when it comes to vegetarian food, because they 9 times out of 10, they're very processed. So they're taking things like seitan, jackfruit. Jackfruit's actually a fruit. We all know what soy is. Tempeh is actually a gluten protein, so it's made from bread. It's all completely gluten protein. So that's not necessarily low carb, right? And then there's the pea proteins that we see in powders and things like that. Now, again, these things can be extremely healthy. They tend to have more fiber. They're going to have some carbs in them if you're, you know, trying to watch your carbohydrate intake. You know, there's going to be some carbs. There's definitely some sodium in there. There's some funky stuff in some of the products, not all of them. I definitely suggest trying to go organic whenever you can. This is not excluded from that. But other things that you're going to be able to find within these foods, and I'll try to talk about, you know, the jackfruit and things like that a little bit, just so everybody knows what it is. A lot of these things, yes, they're vegetable based. They're going to be lower in cholesterol than your meats are. They are, like I said, very, very highly processed. There are tons of sodium in them. There aren't an immense amount of calories. It's probably going to be less than what you would find, but they do replace in some of these products fats. So the fats you would normally get from meat, unless you're eating 99% fat-free chicken breast or something like that, they're going to replace that fat with another source of fat. Now, I can't tell you exactly what it is, whether it's natural or not. You'd have to look at the package yourself, or just buy organic, so everything in there is good to go. But again, it comes back. It lends to the question: are these healthier? Um, I do have I have zero issue with anybody doing a vegetarian diet. I do suggest, though, that when you do any diet, you need to talk to your doctor first and foremost. And two, these are no suggestions that I'm making. These are just things that have been popping up lately. Um, I think overall, these are a great choice. These are a great way to substitute some meat if you want to eat so much meat. Relying on them completely, that's not a good idea to do with any food. So just keep that in mind going forward. We can go to the next slide, Jen. Thank you. So going on to something that might be a little bit more familiar, that's the vegetarianism, and I talked about it before, the flexitarianism. Are there any vegetarians in this room right now by any chance? Just let me know in the chat. I'm honestly very curious. I know a lot of vegetarians, not because of my field, but just because I know so many people who have adopted it. My buddy, who is very much a large tattooed, very like masculine person, is a full-on vegetarian. I would have never known. He told me a few months ago after I noticed he had lost 5 or 10 pounds, and he's been going vegetarian lately. He does eat eggs once in a while, just so he doesn't want to become malnourished, but it was very, very surprising. Oh, I see somebody here has been a vegetarian their entire life. That's amazing. Is that, a lot of the times this has to do with culture. It has to do with the way you were raised. It might have to do with your beliefs as a person or the beliefs of your family as a person. But vegetarianism is extremely, extremely common. And when you get to the flexitarianism side of things, it's vegetarianism without so much of the rules. So you want to try to eat mainly vegetarian, but you're allowed to have the occasional piece of meat. It's really at your discretion. From what I've seen of it, it's very, very limited. Somebody might have one piece of meat or a meat product. I consider egg to be a meat product. I mean, it does come from a chicken. It's a chicken embryo. I consider that to also be breaking vegetarianism, but it fits within flexitarianism. I think it's a great way to go. I try to do this as much as possible, but I probably eat meat at least once every 2 days. I just feel lighter and faster and better when I don't eat meat. That's me personally. Again, all of these diets are for your personal, well-being. It's going to fit a specific type of person. Some things will work for you, some things will not. So make sure we keep that in mind as we continue talking about this. Jen, could you please go to the next slide? Thank you. So I thought this was important. So when everybody hears, oh, I'm going to go vegetarian, what am I going to do? Eat salads all day? I'm going to eat broccoli and stuff like that. That is so far from the truth. It's unbelievable. As you can see just from this is actually, I looked up ideal vegetarian meal, and it kept coming back to this images. Now this goes for out an entire day, as you can see. So the seeds and nuts are lower servings because they're high in fat. The fruit might have higher servings. There is some sugar in there we would want to watch out for. But then all of the grains and the starchy vegetables, those have super high servings, like you would see in a normal diet that does eat meat. And you see the beans and lentils. So again, I just wanted to highlight there's really easy, delicious, and very healthy ways to go vegetarian. Don't have to do anything you don't want to do, but I do highly suggest that if you don't even know where to start including some of these things in your diet. Lentils was a game changer for me, for instance, when I wanted to eat less meat. Lentils and cauliflower, I cook it in homemade tomato sauce all the time till it gets very, broken down and it's easy to chew. It was a huge game changer for me. If anybody has questions about that, I'll have my contact info in the chat towards the end of this. Feel free to reach out. I'd love to trade, stories and tips and advice and give you some of the feedback that I've gotten from clients in the past from all different, areas of life, right? From pregnant women to the guy who works the 9 to 5 labor job. Jen, we can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So I think everybody's been waiting for this one. I hear about this, I think, more than any other diet out there. And for good reason. It can be extremely effective. What's not spoken about is that there are some risks associated with this because of what you're eating and what you're not eating. So I'm going to give you a little bit of history about the ketogenic diet. So it was originally developed for epileptics. After you have a seizure, you kind of have, the easiest way to say is that you have your wires crossed and there's excess electricity in your brain. Being that carbohydrates soak up water, water conducts electricity very well. They tell you not to eat carbs. I've had a seizure before. I wasn't allowed to eat carbs for 3 days. And there's a reason for that. You can, if you're still twitchy or something along those lines, I'm not a scientist here on the subject, but you can be sent back into another seizure. So that's actually where this came from. It wasn't about losing weight. That just happened to be a great side effect. I don't think anybody probably complained about that. They really, I would imagine they found some great uses for this. But again, somebody asked a question about vegetarian diet, and I'm going to come back to that at the end of this, or Mia. So it's known for that quick weight loss as that great side effect. Again, you would never guess that's where it came from, but there are some things to think about. So one of the things is, well, you know, how many carbs can I eat? This is almost no carbs to very, very, very little carbs. Now, if anybody in here, which I'm sure people are thinking about this because they see quick weight loss, they want to go for it, please talk to your doctor beforehand. There are serious implications for your internal organs if you do not do the keto diet correctly. Why take the risk? It can affect, just to give you an example, it can destroy your kidneys from the amount of protein you take in. That can screw up your entire sodium potassium pump in your body. Not something that anybody wants. You're looking at severe damage to your body that more times than not will be irreversible, because if you're not seeing a doctor, you don't know what's happening. So that damage keeps on happening. So just something to look out for. And that's just one example. There's another thing to think about is that there's no carbs here. So what's one of the main things that we get from carbohydrates? And that's fiber. We need fiber. Now, being that this all relies heavily on fats, sure, you're going to get some fiber in almonds, great, but it relies almost entirely, I think it's 60% of your calories, 60 to 70% of your calories come from fats. So almost no diet in there. You're going to be stopped like a wine cork. You're not going to be able to use the bathroom. That can make you feel terrible, especially short term. Forget long term. You won't even make it long term because you'll be so backed up. It is something to think about, that to have a fiber supplement. I use one for just my own digestion, and it's super cheap. They taste pretty good. The one downside I've noticed is when you mix it with water, if you leave it there for more than 30 seconds, it turns into the consistency of pudding. That's one thing to look out for. But otherwise, you can find, I mean, there's so many different fiber supplements out there that don't gel up to drink. You can add it, you know, to things as like food seasonings. I've seen people add it in sauces. You know, you don't even know it's there half the time. I'll take mine with water because you're supposed to drink a lot of water with fiber. But again, it's another thing to look out for. And I just want to hit on this one more time, is that since this is something that's so frequently asked about, I do urge everyone that if they have questions now, after the meeting, please reach out to me, reach out to your doctor, reach out to an expert, period, in the field of nutrition, or ideally your primary care physician. I can't stress this enough, really, with any diet, but especially keto, because people are so drawn to it. And there's a lot of chance that something can go wrong. I really would hope that you all would go to your doctors. Jen, we can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. And then there's the veganism side. So I know there's not a lot of vegans in this room. If there is, please let me know. So far, we have Ermia, who was the sole vegetarian in this room. She's been a vegetarian her whole life. Veganism is vegetarianism, but far more strict. So there's no allowance whatsoever of any animal product. So that's not just what you eat. That's also the clothes you wear, the car you drive. If there's, you know, the vegans tend to stay away from anything that's an animal product. That can be soap. So you have to buy natural soap. It could be, you know, your toothpaste. I mean, it is very, and I wrote it down there, it's initially very difficult to adopt the lifestyle because it does exclude all of the animal products. But people go vegan for a billion different reasons. They feel bad for animals. They don't believe in killing animals in general. It does leave a much smaller carbon footprint on our planet because raising livestock does, there's studies on methane gases that are released and ozone gases, that it destroys our ozone, that it's a more sustainable way to live. Whatever your, your reason might be, it is a great way to live. My sister was vegan for a while. I only know because she told me 6,000 times, which a lot of vegan people tend to do. It is you need to be extremely strict and very disciplined to follow veganism. And then on the second, I guess, level of that, there's something called raw veganism. So it's a subset of veganism, but it's all of the veganism ideals. In addition to the fact that the thought is that you need to follow the concept of what's called raw foodism, and that's all foods should be eaten completely raw, or if they're going to be heated, they need to be heated at temperatures below 104 degrees. Now, granted, you can get your food hot that way. You cannot cook your food that way, unless maybe you want to sit there for 6-7 hours every time you have a sandwich or something. Like I don't know, I'm just making something up here, but that's an extremely difficult way to live. I've seen a lot of good things happen when people go vegan and they turn their life around. They might have been sick and had a chronic illness. They completely reversed it. I've also seen vegan diets go very, very wrong very quickly. Especially people who are vegans, they tend to have their friends adopt it, or I've seen people have their pets adopt it. This kind of diet I'm a PSA for animals everywhere. It can kill an animal. Please don't do it unless it's a rabbit. I'm begging you. I've seen that. For people, to me, it seems a lot worse because humans can live a lot longer when they're in a starvation period, but people who are completely malnourished, you're thinking of something that looks like kwashiorkor, which you might not know what that is. That is a type of malnourishment where your body, from what I understand of it, produces so much acid in the stomach, your stomach bulges out and it's stuck there permanently. Your body begins to eat itself. Again, it's not only not enough calories, but it's not the right nutrition. You need certain vitamins and minerals for the organs and the different chemical processes in your body. If those are not met, I say this with everybody who goes into a diet, those are not met, you will see adverse side effects ranging from headaches. You can lose your vision. You can get shakes. I've seen people have strokes. I've worked, again, this is especially important if you are pregnant. I definitely urge you to go to a doctor. Anybody who's deciding to go vegan, I urge you to go to your doctor. This especially because you are taking out so many calories and so much nutrition. Again, it is really cool to talk about these things, but we all have to keep in mind that a diet, since it's sustained over time, you're either taking in those nutrients or you are not. And that is a huge problem if you're not. We need certain things just to exist and get up out of bed every day. Not having those over a period of time, just imagine the havoc it wreaks on your body, right? So I think this is the last slide I have of talking about different diets. What I'm going to go into next, and Jen, we can go to the next slide, please. Oh, I guess not. So this was just examples of vegan food. I didn't realize that I put another infographic in here. There's a lot of things in here that you might not have eaten. So like grated veggies, essentially what that is, that's a broken down vegetable. And then you make it into something else, so you can make, let's say, oatmeal peanut butter protein balls. I've seen people do homemade falafel. That's another vegan thing, right? It's just chickpeas and salt, pepper, garlic, tahini, and I think parsley. King oyster mushrooms, if you don't know what those are very, very good. They have the consistency of meat. You can season them any way you want to. They are really good. You'll see jackfruit there again, the tempeh, the tofu, which is the soy, in case nobody has been able to put that together yet, when you've seen it. And just really good examples. Again, there are ways to go vegetarian and vegan and keto. There are really good ways to do it. And what it all comes down to is, are you getting the proper nutrients? Are you getting the proper foods into your diet? And I do highly suggest just work with the doctor. And I'll stop harping on that now. Jen, we can go to my next slide. I just want to touch on a few things about just in general, whether you're going to follow a diet or not, because that was not my goal today, was to send you off here and you be ready to take on a diet. I would never take this small amount of time to do that. Everybody is different. So I think the best use of my time here was to concentrate on things that are going to make this simple, things that I follow, that are tried and true. and that I can speak to, and what I know just generally works. If you're willing to put in a little bit of time and a pretty small amount of effort. I work a lot on top of working out, social life, a girlfriend, family. I don't want to do more than I have to. And I'm gifting you all that advice today. So we can go hop on to the next slide and we'll just start jumping into it. I love this infographic so much. I use this all the time. All you need is this. The next time you go eat, you know exactly what you're going to eat. This is true. This is about a cup of rice. For this, I had to think about this a little bit. So this is referring to the nuts, the half cup of nuts. And it's true, if you actually were to just lay them and have them be about an inch high on your knuckle, it is about a half cup of nuts, maybe a little bit less. I eat about a quarter cup of nuts every time I eat them, just, you know, to give you background on it and let you know what I do. The teaspoon of fat and the teaspoon of sugar, very, very accurate, especially the sugar. The fat, in my opinion, I have big hands, so I would probably use a little bit less than the tip of my finger if it were me. But again, when you move on to something like the peanut butter, that is a very, very accurate measure. I'd probably bring it up again. I have big hands. I'd bring it up in maybe a half inch on my thumb. Super accurate. I use this all the time, everyone. I do urge you that if you are looking for this, you can easily just Google portion sizes hand guide. This will immediately pop up. If not, and you want it even easier, I'm happy to send it out to you. So please just, ask. The last thing with the meat, this surprises anybody. Is anybody here surprised seeing that a serving of meat is that small? Oh, thank you, Cindy. Cindy said it was useful. I appreciate it. I'm sure it surprises me that a portion of meat is this size. I would, granted, I might eat that in a sitting, but I'm gonna be hungry afterwards unless I have something on the side. So, but again, it's very humbling. It clues you into what you're doing right, what you might be doing wrong. For me, servings of meat was definitely something I was eating too much of. And again, that lent me into eating far more vegetables than I used to over the past probably year and a half, 2 years. I've adopted this in my lifestyle. Jen, we go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So I talked about this a little bit last month. And again, these are things that I want everyone to focus on and take away when you leave here. So fats exist in our life no matter what. It's really, really hard to go completely fat-free. And guess what? It's super unhealthy. It can really destroy your system, from your hormones to your fat burning potential to everything, your brain. It's there, but what we do have control over is limiting the bad fats, the saturated fats and the trans fats. You do need some saturated fats. Those are the fats you get from typically animal fats. You'll see them you'll see saturated fat, maybe in some creamy milk products, stuff like that. Trans fats, those are the fats that you're seeing in fast foods, and hydrogenated oils, right? Those are the fats you want to avoid as much as possible. Fats we want are the monounsaturated, polyunsaturated, and omega-3s. So really easy rule of thumb to follow. Oils, so healthy oils, which we all know are the olive oils, the canola oils. Coconut oil, I like. A lot of people don't like coconut oil, so don't chew my head off if you try it and you don't like it. It tastes slightly like coconut. And then omega-3s, which are coming from fish. So you have the oil, you have fish, and nuts. Those are the three things that I typically follow. If you're more adventurous, I most certainly am. I like avocado for fat. There are 1,000,000,001 different kind of nut butters, fruit butters out there. Fruit butters, obviously, have to watch out because of the carbs, but if you can fit it into your calorie allotment for the day, oh, they're so good. They're so good. And again, like you see those choices down at the bottom, these are the main ones we can go to. And again, who doesn't eat eggs? And who doesn't eat fish? Some people really hate fish. I don't know a lot of people who don't eat it at all, even if it's tuna fish. I think I have 2 friends who don't eat any sort of seafood whatsoever. Great sources, but it's not all seafood. It is fatty fishes. We're looking at salmon, mackerel, halibut you can go for. It's not as fatty, but that's where you're gonna get your omega-3s from. All right, thank you, David. We can go to the next slide, Jen. I'm gonna jump into 2 more like little food groups I want everybody to focus on. I talked about it before, fiber. Like earlier this presentation, I spoke about fiber. Fiber is probably one of the most under taken in nutrients that I think anybody can really have. And for some people, it's almost non-existent in their diet. 30 to 38 grams a day for men, 21 to 25 grams a day for women. There's a lot of fiber and a lot of things. Beans are a good rule of thumb. Beans, apples, fruits, and in general, but also things like sweet potatoes, things like oatmeal. But it is very, very easy to bring into your diet because there's, they're always associated with carbs. Who doesn't eat carbs? We can go to the next slide, Jen. Thank you. And then I'm not going to spend too long on this. Everyone here is an adult. We all know that processed foods really aren't good for us. We want to try to avoid them as much as possible. Half of the ingredients you can't pronounce. That's a problem. Why would you want to put that into your body? I cheat sometimes. I try to avoid it as much as possible. And I do notice an instantaneous effect when I do eat something that's terrible for me. I feel awful afterwards. So there's a reason for that. On top of just making you heavy, it's just really challenging your system to process that level of, sugar, fat, plastic. There's like plastics found in this stuff. Not something we want to take in too often. Jen, let's go to the next slide. Thank you. And then these are just the last few tips that I wanted to settle on here. These are things that I follow religiously. Eat slowly and consciously. Get away from the TV. That's really all that means. Don't have your phone in your hand. Think about what you're eating and enjoy it. Avoid all those processed foods. Go for the fresh, unprocessed stuff. Stay on the outside. One of the best tricks that I learned is staying on the outside of the supermarket because the internal aisles are typically all processed. You can find some stuff there, like salt-free tomato sauces, stuff like that. Other than that, I'd pretty much avoid it. I stay on the outside, the fruits, veggies, the meats, eggs, that kind of thing. Avoid the flavored drinks, so many calories for no reason, and you don't feel that great afterwards. And then instead of those 2 to 3 large meals a day, try to aim for those 3 to 5 small meals a day. Now, it might be annoying to cook a lot, but once you prep a whole bunch of food and separate it out, it's much, much easier. And then lastly, this is something that affects us immediately, is our salt intake, 1,500 milligrams a day, no more. That's the limit that we want to stay at. If you stay within these, I can promise you, and as long as you're honest with yourself and you're not cheating on your diet too much, you can see some real results, whether it's weight, whether it's some energy that's allotted to you throughout your day, or just generally feeling better, right? I know we are very short on time. I kind of took a little bit longer, but I wanted to see if anybody had any questions. I know. I think it was, Ermia had some questions. So the questions that I'm seeing here are for vegetarian diet. What about vitamin B, iron, phosphates, and creatine? What about mushrooms? So what about them is really what I guess is my question to you, but those are all extremely, extremely important to have in, especially the iron and vitamin B. Creatine, you can get that supplemented with stuff that's over the counter. Because finding creatine in plant sources, there's so little in them for most vegetarian sources. It'll be hard, but you can just buy it over the counter. You can do a load phase that's 20 grams a day for 5 days, and then your maintenance phase right after that, which is 5 grams a day every day, and you maintain your creatine levels in your muscle and in your blood. Mushrooms are a really, really exciting topic to touch, by the way. Cindy said that 1,500 milligrams of salt is about 2/3 of a teaspoon. It's not a lot, so use the power of the pinch when you use salt. But to touch on the mushroom thing really quick, there's so much new research that's being released about mushrooms, and a lot of its cognitive effects. They are just various very, very positive effects that it's having on your body. I'd say, why not look into them if you're taking supplements, research them a little bit. And then the flip side of things, if you're eating mushrooms, keep eating them. I don't like mushrooms that much, but once in a while, I'll have a king oyster mushroom, or I'll grill the shiitake or something like that. Anyway, I'm sorry I took so long. I hope this helped everyone. If anybody needs this, needs any of this information, has questions for me, I'm happy to talk offline. You can email me. My email is right here. I'm putting it in. And you all let me know. Oh, I just sent that to Jen. Oops. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Nick, for today's Let's Talk Wellness presentation. That was excellent. Great tips and advice right there for you. I do just want to call out that we will be recording this session and we'll be reposting this up on Version Pulse within your calendar. In addition to next week, our Let's Talk Wellness series is about mindful eating, and we will be talking about making it a playground for the senses. Learn to move from just chowing down to fully appreciating your food. So we'll see you here next week, same time, same place, and hope you guys have a great week. Thanks, guys.